actually. But guess who's here? Mark Collett. Sir, how's it going?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Copacetic, I think, would be how I would describe myself. Also, my voice is almost back to full strength. It was damaged after the Knoxville excursion, but it's getting there. It's getting back. It's getting back close. So, how have you been? I think it's been what 2-3 weeks since you've been here.
It has. It was a brilliant weekend. I can't believe how many memes and different things came out of it. In fact, I sent you a couple of videos as it was all happening because the stuff coming out was just, well, it was absolutely fantastic. But I was watching one. Actually, I was watching one yesterday. It was yesterday now, obviously, because I've been to bed before I got up for this. But it was a really, really interesting one. Actually, it was our friend Autism is Unbearable interviewing Tonka about how he was going to absolutely destroy Andy Warski and how apparently he was the one that built Mr. Metokur by giving him too much time on the Kumite.
Yeah, that was pretty curious there. He said he called Mr. Metokur a leech who tried to suck off his life force, basically, and leech off the Kumite, which is pretty much the complete opposite of what actually went down. But yeah, not been a good couple weeks for Autism is Unstoppable, has it?
No, it's been pretty bad. But I noticed that sort of every kind of failure and sort of miscreant started backing Tonka before the fight, and they've all been very, very quiet since. I believe he was even talking to our old friend Kraut before the fight as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He actually was. Kraut's still Team Tonka. Well, I mean, Kraut doesn't have a lot of friends either. Let's face it. But
it has been good for one person though. There is one person out there who's very, very happy about what happened, and that's Mundane Matt, because no one's talking about him anymore.
Oh, Matt, he even reactivated his Twitter and came back after all this.
Well, the Boulder Boy, no one cares anymore. All the memes about him have quietly gone away, and he must be sat there breathing a major, major sigh of relief.
Happy days are here again for Matt. I'm going to step away 1 second. Zidane, Gator, go ahead, talk to Mark. I'll be right back, and we'll continue the program.
Well, Mundane Matt, he's always going to be a punching bag. I don't think he's ever going to get away from what he did. But Tonka, man, he's on a different fucking level right now. He streamed today. I don't know if you caught any of it. First time in 2 weeks. And
no, I haven't. I heard that apology stream he did where he sounded like he was 45 meters away from the mic. That was horrific. And it was one of those really good apologies that starts as an apology, but then towards the end sort of morphs into just like a giant ball of really poor excuses and not answering anyone's actual questions.
Oh no, he didn't take any
consistency.
Yeah, he really didn't take any responsibility in the apology. He was like, it's only 20% my fault when it's 100% his fault. But yeah, he did stream today. He went and changed the name of his channel, tried to rebrand everything as a wrestling channel, and tried to stream about wrestling, literally ignoring everything that happened, all of it, all of the Knoxville stuff, all the shit talk he talked before, everything, and just was I think his first few sentences were, we're talking about Monday Night Raw or something, which is like a wrestling program. That's it.
Well, that when he did his apology, he kept just using the word miserable and saying how miserable it was, and he made some excuses about how all of his fights were, in his words, dark matches.
It's just so miserable, just miserable.
The thing is, he tries so hard. He really does try hard. I mean, what he means is they were, if he ever had fights, he means they were unlicensed matches. They weren't dark matches. You see, he always tries to use bits of lingo, but I'm not really sure if he knows what he's talking about. Because if you actually look up a dark match is a wrestling match at a televised event that doesn't go out live. So if you go to a taping of Raw,
that's correct.
It might be about 4 or 5 hours long, but a dark match is one of the matches that doesn't make the 2-hour TV cut.
It either happens before or after the show, and it's not on air. Usually the ones after the show are, could be a main event wrestlers wrestling each other, but they just don't want it on air for whatever reason. And then the ones before the show could be local jobbers or local, wrestlers versus some people, kind of trying people out, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And he was saying that his MMA fights were dark matches.
Yeah.
And I think he uses this terminology because to people who don't, and I'm not a huge wrestling fan. One of my friends he sends me like amusing wrestling shoots and podcasts and things. And I listened to some of them, but when I started listening to them, I hadn't got a clue what I was hearing. So I had to look up some of the terminology. So that's how I sort of know a little bit about it. But I'm not the biggest wrestling fan. But he's one of these people who uses terms like that. Because to the uninitiated, to people who haven't got a clue about wrestling or the fight game, it sounds really intelligent, doesn't it? Like, oh, all my matches were dark matches. And a few of his, some of his fans will be nodding, going, oh, well, that explains it all, not even knowing what he means.
Yeah, I would agree. And let me ask you this. Think about where he was a year ago today, or at least a year ago from next month, where the Kumite was. It was riding high. I'm sure you followed some of their stuff back in the day. And where he is now. And is this an object lesson for other people in the same spot?
Well, firstly, and this is really interesting because I watch a lot of different shows. I like a lot of different content. And I used to love Warski Live. That was like the cream, especially when they had people like Mike Enoch on. Absolutely fantastic. But I never really liked the Kumite. The Kumite was just absolutely terrible. It was like 3-4 hours, sometimes more, of essentially just sounded like a load of people who'd got drunk the night before or were stoned, just talking nonsense. And the pace of the chat was terrible. I just didn't enjoy it. Now, I did try to listen to a few shows, and they had all these really, really annoying memes constantly popping up on screen. I just didn't really like it. It was never my thing. But I was around at that time. I mean, when I came into the show, you guys were talking about something that was really interesting. You were talking about the Roger Stone issue.
Sure.
But you listened to the Kumite, and all it was, well, it was just trash. But I think this is a real message for people, or a real lesson for people, to see how far someone can fall.
I think, and we talked about this, I want to say when Jim was on earlier this week, or I think it was when he was on, the downside of the Kumite was they couldn't really talk about anything but the drama, you know what I mean, as far as news went and, real world events. And maybe they would even want to talk about it and then talk and be like, oh, that's gay, politics, that's gay, we can't talk about that, whatever. Let's talk about wrestling or Godzilla or, whatever drama's going on. Now, we talk about drama, to be sure, and sometimes we might do a whole show on the drama. That's happened plenty of times. But you have to be able to talk about a wide array of topics. And as far as the news goes, that never gets old. There's always a news story. There's always a political event or what's happening, culturally. And if you can't talk about those issues, you're gonna get burned out pretty quickly. And it's not just that. I think with the Kumite, it's the hubris that Tonka himself had. And if he would have just been had a little more humility. I see no reason why they couldn't still be having a good show to this day. Or, well, maybe not a good show. It depends on if you like the show or not. But a successful show, you know what I mean?
Well, I don't know. I think there are shows that can go for years. And if you keep having good guests and talking about relevant things, and the shows are tight, sort of 2 to 3 hours, and it's filled with content, I think shows can go on for years. But there was no form. There was no structure. It was just rambling. I mean, I remember seeing one stream that was 7 hours. Well, who listens to a 7-hour stream? I mean, I just think that's insanity. And I tried to listen to some of that stream because I thought, wow, they must have something really compelling to talk about. And I set my I had to set my YouTube to double speed because there was so much dead air and just breaks and these giant pauses between things they were talking about. It was actually almost impossible to listen to. It was just painful. In fact, to quote Donga, it was just miserable. The whole thing was miserable. But he's worse than Kraut in a way, because psychologically, that guy must be in a really, really terrible place. Because not only did he build this false internet world, because he's another person that's never done anything in the real world. He's a complete failure. Most likely lives with a family member, never had a real job, and the internet makes him famous. But more so than people like Kraut, he's actually further down the rabbit hole, because whilst Kraut and Mundane Matt the internet just made them someone. With Donga, well, the internet made him someone, but also he had almost like a computer game or Second Life persona, something that was completely unreal. Like Kraut, he never really hid that he was a complete dork. He was just a dork that was famous and people were listening to. But Donga, he managed to hide the truth about himself. And it was almost like he was playing Second Life. On the internet, he was not only famous, but for the first time in his life, he was a wrestler. He was an MMA man. He was involved in the fight game. He was talking to the big boys at WWE, you know, and people believed this. So for him, being brought down to this sort of new low or back to reality, it's not really a new low, it's the low he's lived at for his whole damn life. I mean, but it's being brought down to reality must be twice as bad for him, because not only has he lost his importance and his relevance, he's also lost the facade that he is that fantasy figure that he's always wished to be.
Well, he was 100% playing a character. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And, you know, he did have some indie wrestling experience or whatever, but it was nothing huge. But to hear him tell it, you know, he was this wrestling guy. He knew AJ Styles and he talked to people in WWE and he did this MMA stuff. And whoa, you're just a pussy if you're sitting on these streams. Why don't we fight in real life? And just complete, you know, it was a work, to use a wrestling term. And when he got called on it, he got embarrassed. And I think just the ego of the guy, it's just, so listen to him in the interview before the fight where he's talking to the promoter. And they're supposed to be hyping the fight, Mark. And you listen to Andy and he's engaging and he's making jokes and I can't wait to smash this guy's face in. Donga gets on there and he sounds like he's about to hang himself. Like he's just so monotone. Of course, maybe at that time he knew he wasn't going to go as well, but it's just, I don't know. It's just a strange performance all the way around. And now he's changed the name of his channel to Wrestling Today. And he's just going to talk about wrestling now. And, oh, you goose, why are you so caught up in the drama when he's the one who hyped this up for 6 months? It's just, I don't like the chances of him succeeding with this strategy. What about you?
Well, I've got to give him credit where credit's due. He managed to do two things. The first, if you watch his old wrestling videos, he did know how to take a bump, and that's all he did. Big guys who looked quite unfit but very strong threw him around.
Well, he was a jobber. He was a jobber.
He was. He flopped like a fish. Yes. And he was good at it. But the other thing is he could cut a good promo. Now, the last thing I heard before the fight date was when he was on, I think he's called Nick Recator.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was when actually that night we did a 7-8 hour stream, but it was because it was, you know, he was getting destroyed all night long. So that's why we did it. Generally, I agree with you. Anything over 2 or 3 hours, I try not to do because it's just people can't go back and listen to it. They just don't have enough time in their day. Now, there are exceptions here and there, but that was one of those exceptions when he was just getting completely decimated by Recator. And Recator was very nice to him. He was getting decimated by his own lies. That's what was happening there.
But there was an interesting bit in that show, a bit that told you a lot about Donga as a person. He lied and he lied and he lied. But when they brought Andy on, and this was very good for Andy because it was the completion of Andy's character arc. Andy was no longer angry. Andy was laughing. And Nick Recator was like, well, Andy's here. You can talk to Andy. And the first thing he did was explode into this really, really well worked out promo where he was like, I don't want to fight. I don't want to talk. I want to fight. I don't want to talk, Andy. I want to fight you. I want to maul you. I want to take you into the ring and I want to hurt you. And it was like something. It was like Macho Man Randy Savage from the 80s. And you're listening to this and you're thinking, at first you're like, this is actually quite impressive. He's good at this promo. And then you just see Andy laughing. And Andy's like, well, if you wanted to fight, why didn't you come to Knoxville? And then he keeps going, sign the contract, Andy. Sign the contract. Are you signing? And Andy's like, there was a contract. I signed it. I got my blood work in. And you can see Donga falling to pieces because there's Andy, who at one time would have probably risen to this, just laughing his head off and saying, look, I've got better things to do. I'm going to go and sit with my girlfriend. I'm going to go and play some computer games. I got better things to do than talk to this complete idiot. And this guy is still cutting his promo. He's still trying so hard to put on this persona one last time. But for the first time, the persona just doesn't wash at all, because everything he's saying and everything he's accusing Andy of are all his own shortcomings. And that was almost beautiful. It was almost like he was cutting a promo in a mirror, but really all the insults were insults aimed at himself, because he hadn't signed properly. He hadn't shown his face. He hadn't been training. I mean, one of the biggest, I knew he was never going to show for the fight. I spoke to Andy. I did a stream with him where we talked about some gaming, some other stuff. And I was, at the time, I said, I'm not sure if he'll show up. And I said that to a lot of people I was speaking to about it, because he wouldn't even show himself. Now, if I was going to fight somebody, if somebody said to me, you've got to fight this guy and you've got to train and you've got 3 months, I would put some footage up of me training. I'd have pictures taken of me, doing some weights, doing a run, doing some bag work.
Doing something.
Yeah, you'd get people hyped for it, and you'd be like, I'm going to get this guy scared. I'm going to get in his head. I'm going to show him that I'm working 10 times harder than I've ever worked. And when I get in that ring with him, I'm going to absolutely smash him. But before we get in the ring, I'm going to mentally break him. Then I'm going to physically break him. But as the fight got closer and closer, all Donga would show is this stupid, fan pictures of him as some sort of naked blue-skinned Indian.
Which is a very strange avatar from the start, right? Like, what is this exactly?
I didn't even know what it meant. I still don't know what it means.
I still don't know what it means.
He survived smallpox.
It's some blue man, and I guess that's supposed to be body paint or what? And I still don't get it, really.
No, I never really understood it. And now it's all over for him. It's all over for him. But it should be a cautionary tale to people not to overreach, because he could have had a small channel. He could have been like, look, I know a bit about wrestling. Maybe he's met a couple of the WWE guys. Maybe he went to a show and shook hands with a few of them. He's got a picture with one of them. Great. Well done, mate. If that's your thing.
Well, hell, I got a picture with a few of them myself. I mean, that's not, but yeah, I know what you mean. If he just stayed in his lane, maybe the Kumite would have fizzled out, a little bit. He could have just went back to talking about wrestling and no big deal. And, people maybe would look upon him fondly, or maybe, oh, what's Tonka up to? Oh, I see his stream. Maybe he's talking about wrestling. Oh, I'll check it out and watch. Oh, I watch wrestling every once in a while. Let me hop in here. I remember when he used to have a big show, and instead now he's just a pariah. The only friends he has are either his lackeys who have nothing else. Even most of them have left. His supporters, and I separate the lackeys and the supporters. So the lackeys would be the people there with him on stream mostly, but even a lot of his supporters have disavowed this guy. So the only people that he has left are, people like Kraut and Monday Matt and, just the absolute drags of the internet.
Girl.
Say what?
That pink-haired girl.
Yeah, Vamp. Well, Vamp, I put her in the Stockholm Syndrome. Like, she'll never turn on him, just because I guess they have a long history or whatever. But
look, for him, that's the one saving grace. If you are a complete failure of a man, if you're a complete failure, if everything's gone wrong for you and your life's collapsed, you've been publicly humiliated, you've been shown up to the entire world as a fraud, you are literally now the picture that people get when they Google internet tough guy. And there's still a girl out there who sticks by you and hangs on your every word. And, she's not a 15-stone whale. Well, at least he's come out of it with that.
I guess. I guess at least he's got that. I don't know, man. It's just, I don't think look, I've been publicly embarrassed on the internet and to a fairly large degree. I mean, getting arrested and, splashed all over, nationwide newspapers, worldwide publications. That was a tough time. I'm not going to lie. It's hard when people are, dragging you all over the internet. And if you're not mentally tough enough to sustain it, that's why I don't see how he can continue continue on with what he's doing. I don't think he's mentally tough enough to get through. Now, luckily for me, I was just drunk on a hotel couch, whatever. It wasn't this guy's a complete fucking fraud. Everything he said for, years he lied about. For me, it was just like, oh yeah, Ralph, what an idiot. You know what I mean? He did a stupid thing. Whereas in his case, it's, everything he's told us for years is a lie. He's a fraud, and it's all a joke. You know what I mean? So I just don't think he's mentally tough enough to get through it, though, I guess is what I'm getting at.
I don't think he is either. I don't think he's going to make any comeback from this. I think the best thing he can do, or the best thing he could have done, I thought this is what he was going to do, was just take a couple of months off, then come back with a rebranded channel, talk about something
just do his wrestling thing. Yeah. I mean, right. So what would be your advice to him now? I mean, he's kind of trying to change tact or whatever, or just go full wrestling, but coming back on the same channel, it's right away. It's stupid. I just don't understand. Maybe if he gave it a couple months, there are always going to be people who fuck with him, and rightfully so. But if he gave it 2 or 3 months, he just came back like, look, guys, I know there was some drama. I'm just trying to talk about wrestling and whatever. Maybe that would have worked. At this point, I don't like his current strategy, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, apparently he made a lot of money. I heard, I think it was Andy and Jim was saying that he made something. He made into 6 figures. He made into 6 figures. And the Kumite and Warski Live, what was that now? About a year ago.
So Warski Live ended, I think, in May. I believe early May or mid May, 2018.
So he's made 100. He's made. Apparently, he's made. Allegedly, he's made over 100,000.
It's safe to say that he's probably made $100,000. Yeah.
So he's not done bad for himself. He's got a little nest egg. There was lots of sort of rumors and speculation from Andy and Jim where that money went, and what he did with it, where he squirreled it. So he's got a little nest egg. My advice to him is, he sits pretty. He's probably got a very low-cost lifestyle. He's probably on some kind of income benefit at the same time. Probably lives with a family member. That money is, probably been put away for a rainy day. He should just sit back, spend a month or 2 thinking about this, spend it with people that genuinely support him, people like that Vamp Candy. And then if he, wants to transition into something else, maybe a new channel, but don't just come back. I mean, all he's going to do by ignoring it and by trying to run shows is just do exactly what Monday Matt did, which is get every single video flagged down by thousands and thousands of downvotes to just a couple of upvotes. And it's just going to just carry on and get worse and worse for him.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, I'll give you your final take on Donga, and then I'm going to ask you what you're thinking about, what you want to talk about. I have some topics of my own, but final thought on Donga here.
Well, in a word or in 2 words, complete fraud.
Yeah.